We're up to 30 dead teenagers in London this year.
Yeah, it's shocking, but not unexpected. We've been writing about this for over 15 years now and produced 2 papers on how to deal with this. The Centre for Social Justice team went and visited the cities of Boston, Cincinnati, New York, Los Angeles, to look at what they've done. And in some of the areas like Boston, they've had a dramatic impact on reducing the levels of what we would call gang violence. And when you examine them, they're very straightforward. They will say to you, and I think the same here, Glasgow's been phenomenally successful at doing this with their structure based on what happened in the States. And you understand who you're targeting. They're targeting children who are growing up in very dysfunctional homes. All the signals are sent very early on, often even at around the time of birth and neglect. And there are also other issues too. You know, children at school who start to play truant early, disappear, who are disruptive in class. These are the big warning signals where they're going. If they're on the streets, they're going to drift towards gangs. Gangs offer them 2 things, as you said earlier on. Quite often they crave a kind of family existence. And to them, the gangs, quite often we discovered, become kind of father figures. They become structures. In fact, they're not. They're very dysfunctional, but the appearance of it is important. And the second thing they crave is some kind of means of being able to look after themselves. And that, of course, is the money from the dealing or the carrying of weapons that they get paid. So all of these come together. And then if you add, as somebody said earlier on, social media into this, this is the way that messages can be passed around and children can be invited in, as it were, then this process gets worse, not better. So what we discovered is 2 or 3 things. First of all, what happened in Glasgow and has happened in the other cities. The police have got to have the powers to make sure they make gang behavior very difficult indeed. They squeeze it. But at the same time, you need lots of very good community groups that are proper ones that actually get the children, once they're arrested, out of the gangs into remedial education to be able to get them restabilized back, if necessary, into strong parenting. All of that process, you strip out the children from the bottom end of the gangs, and then the gang masters can't operate. And of course, the gang structure collapses. But as we discovered in all these cities, it's permanent. And what's happened too often in London is that different boroughs have done this. Other boroughs next to them didn't. Gangs move from one borough to the other and then back into the borough once they give up because they think they've solved the problem. And that happens the whole time. So it's got to be 100% across the whole of London. It's got to be across the whole of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. But particularly in London, it's become the epicenter for this. And it has to be coordinated. And this is where I've been calling on the mayor to make sure he charges an absolute process to make sure that both policing, community help, support for youngsters, getting the early warning signals right, working with the Home Office, they can be tackled. It can be reduced, even beaten. But we're not doing enough by any means compared to so many other successful cities.